Hey, everybody, it's Mike from The Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's Missing, available on Amazon, paperback and ebook, coming soon, Missing 2, double the expense, double the fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by a sweet psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David songs. Check out The Journey of David on the Sweet Psalmist, Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner, and check out The Mike Wagner Show, MikeWagnerShow.com. 50 podcast platforms, 100 countries. Follow us on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, also Spreaker, YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and more. We're here with the amazing author and entrepreneur born in 1940 in Nazi-occupied Holland during the turmoil of World War II. And he's also his father got drafted into the Dutch army, and absent living and uncertainty of Canadian soldiers liberated their village in 45. Also served 2 years in the Dutch Air Force, emigrated to Canada in 65. That's where he's currently at right now. And also appointed at got his apprentice at a major Dutch lumber company at 15, moved up the ranks and later formed his own company, and passionate about advocate for raising awareness of ADHD, and he's got a new book that's coming out very soon. We'll talk more about that. Live, ladies and gentlemen, in Plus Studios in beautiful Prince George, BC, the amazing author and entrepreneur, and the author of a brand new book. We'll get to that, ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented John Brink. John, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be on your show.
And it's great to have you on board as well, too. So you're an author, entrepreneur, born in 1940 in Nazi-occupied Holland, and your father got drafted in the Dutch army, and you guys have been there for a while until Canadian soldiers liberated village in 45, served 2 years in the Dutch Air Force, emigrated to Canada in 65. That's where we're currently at. You got apprenticed at a major Dutch lumber company at 15. You moved up the rank at other lumber yards, and you got your own company, and it's called Brink Forest Products, and you're passionate and an advocate for raising awareness of ADHD, and you got a brand new book called $1 Billion Communication Skills, and plus some other books like Living Young, Dying Old, and more. Before getting all that, John, tell us how you first got started.
Say again?
Tell us how you first got started.
Oh, I'll get started. Okay, so as I said earlier, I was born in 1940, November 1st, 1940, actually, in Northern Holland. And we, as you already said, we were liberated on April the 12th, 1945 by the Canadian Army. It made such an impression on me as a 5-year-old that I knew from that point forward, as I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And so I was initially going to go when I was 17. My parents said, no, too young. And then I was then drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years, a little more than 2 years, actually. And then I emigrated when I was 23 and left to go to British Columbia. And the reason that I wanted to go to British Columbia, I wanted to buy or build a lumber mill. My grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad worked in lumber. And obviously, at a very young age, academically, I was not exactly a success story. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times. And they said, what are we going to do with this guy? And some people said, send him to the mentally challenged school. He said, no, we're not going to do that. So they then decided at 12 and a half years old, they're going to make me a furniture maker. So they sent me to a furniture factory, and where I worked. I loved it. And kids can be hard on each other. And all the kids that I went to school with that went on to college and university kind of looked down on me because I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then it was kind of looked down at. So I kind of felt that it was time for me to start from the beginning, and that I was just as smart as all the others. Not smarter than, but just as smart as the others. But for me, it was a question, start anew in a new country, in particular Canada. In Holland, it worked this way. No matter what you do in life, you get married or you buy a house or you go to a bank, you get interviewed for a job, or you want to become an entrepreneur. The question is always, where are your diplomas? Well, I didn't have any diplomas.
Now, was that a requirement in Holland to have a diploma in order to start a business there?
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, that nobody would
Wow.
lend you any money if you did not.
Hmm.
So it was kind of expected. So that if I said I studied 3 years of grade seven and failed all three of them, then that would not be a positive on my resume. So, in
Hmm.
any event, in Canada, nobody ever asked me that question. So, when I came to Canada in July of 1965, couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. I wanted to start from the bottom up. I took the train from Montreal to Vancouver, 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. Anyway, to came off the train in Vancouver, went to the immigration office. I could speak English, and fortunately, there was a German fellow there, and I could speak some German. I told him I wanted to build a lumber mill. He said, "Go to Prince George." Prince George, as I said earlier, 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers for our European friends, and
Mm-hmm.
it's in the center of British Columbia, north to south, east to west. So I came off the bus here, and I had one suitcase, three books, two sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least three times. I had exactly $25.47.
Oh my gosh, you're a rich man by today's standards. I'll tell you, I try talking to
I
people
know.
in India, Pakistan, or wherever. It's like you're a rich man. Even Romania is like 25.47. You're considered a millionaire.
No. So in any event, $25.47. So I had a positive attitude. Attitude is critically important. I avoid negative. I had a passion, still do for all the things that I do. I give it 125%. And work ethic, even today, I work harder than anybody. And so I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed and I always think I'm late. And so I started from the ground up as a cleanup man, then a lumber pilot in a sawmill. Within a year, I was already a supervisor and then very quickly became a superintendent. Then got an offer to become part owner of a little sawmill, and I did that. And so that didn't really go quick enough for me. And then I started my own company called Brink Forest Products exactly 50 years ago in July in 1975. So now
Wow.
it's
Okay.
2020. So I've been in business for 50 years as the first company. Started with three employees, worked 7 days a week as long as I could stay awake, did all the things that you have to do, build it from the ground up virtually. And then, but obviously going through the ups and downs, successful. Since the time started another 10 different companies. So my silos today are lumber manufacturing. I have a number of companies in a number of different northern areas. The second one is warehousing, distribution, and logistics. We're the largest warehousing company in northern British Columbia. The other one is real estate, is residential, commercial, and industrial. Here in northern BC, we among the larger ones there. And the other one is media. And the media is obviously I'm a presenter, in demand. I'm an author now working on my sixth book and seventh, actually. And then at the same time, I'm very active in podcasting. We approaching 1 million subscribers on YouTube,
Oh
and
wow. Okay.
are very active in a little. And so I'm looking at setting up our own platform.
Hmm. And
So
you're also
that's
and you're also a bodybuilder as well too. You forgot to mention that.
I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. And so
Oh
that's
my
a
God, you
picture of
look
me.
amazing.
That's a picture of me, and as 85, I in 2018, 2019, I did bodybuilding competitively in northern BC, came in second bodybuilding, third in physique, qualified me for the provincials, did the same there, qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And then COVID came. And so
Ouch.
now I'm again getting ready for another year in 2026, again competing competitively at the Arnold's and the Nationals.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. How did you first get started bodybuilding?
That's a good question, Mike. Is that there is always something that happens that kind of wakes you up in a way. Is that it probably was in 2008. Up to then, I was in okay shape, but not as good as I could be. And then I got a case of diverticulitis. And for
Oh yeah, the one on the side, you got pains and everything. I had that, had to go emergency room. That was no fun. And I gotta say this, I confess, I ate too much popcorn and chips.
and so for me, it ruptured. And so, and you have about 48 hours because before the toxins go through your body, and then your life is really in danger because of the toxicity of, your colon, obviously. And so I got to the hospital, and more than 48 hours later, they operated me, took out 20 centimeters out of my colon. And the following morning, the doc came up to me and he said, "You came this close." That
Wow.
gave me a signal. My wife has been with me for the last 40 years, 42 actually. Uh, the is a vegetarian. And although I was not abusive necessarily in my diet, but I didn't do as well as I could have and should have. And then I didn't do as much. I was just one of the categories. Every year end, you make a decision. I'm going to do this, that, and that, and the other thing, and this, that, and that. And then I'm going to buy a membership to the gym. And then two
That's
weeks
that's pretty
later,
typical. Around January, you get a membership. February kind of tails off. March is like, okay, next year. I understand that. So
that's let's say 2 weeks later, you can find 100 reasons as why you're busy, right? And so, but knew, no, no, I have to do my diet. I have to be much more careful, and I did. And then the other part, in terms of the gym, I hired a trainer. And in 2009, after I recovered from my operation of the diverticulitis, I started going to the gym now 16 years ago and became very, very serious about fitness and health and well-being. And so it was about 6 years or so, and then somebody came up to us in the gym, to me and my trainer, and he said, "Hey, John, have you," and I was in my mid 70s, "have you ever thought about bodybuilding?" I said, "Me? Yeah, you." And I said, "Why not?" They gave me a go. And so that's what I did. Obviously, qualified all the way up to the Arnold's and National. And then since that time, now 16 years later, I'm still working out very, very frequent and all during the week, 4 days a week, and then being very careful with my diet, stay in shape. The other thing that you may find interesting, I do all the shopping for my wife and myself. And if I go to the grocery store, I stay at the outside because in the midsize and the aisles is all the processed and super processed food.
oh yes, yes, like a
If you don't know
Walmart or
what
all
is
that.
in
Yeah.
it,
Oof.
you don't want to eat it. So and so we stay as much as we can with the green. My wife is a vegetarian, as I said earlier. I'm probably 80-20 or maybe even 90-10. And so that works well for me. And so one of the most important things that I do is that every morning I have 10 ounces, before I do anything, I have 10 ounces of water every morning. And then from there on in, I'm very careful with my breakfast. And what I do, I have 3 eggs and then an avocado usually, or half of one. And then I'm very careful with my diet during the daytime and in the evenings. And then the other part, obviously, what I do is, then going to the gym, staying fit. And then the other part, very, very important in my life, I sleep 7 to 9 hours a day, which is also very, very important. So I have a structure. I like it, I enjoy it, but I'm very, very careful about it and very deliberate about it.
And I think you've done great as well too. It's a quite a contrast to what you went through in World War II, and especially in the one significant part, 1944-45. We'll get to that with author John Brink of $1 Billion Communication Skills. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios. Visit online at SoundCloudStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. SoundCloud Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon, paperback, and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. It takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those will be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has gotten great reviews. And Evil Evan and George by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassie, Forrest Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for it goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Coming soon, Missing 2, Double the Suspense, Double the Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by Sweet Psalms by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings in King David's Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote as the times of shipwreck started and complicate yet turbulent relationship with King Saul. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out the Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com. 50 podcast platforms, over 110 countries. Follow us on all social medias, including Facebook and also Twitter, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, and more. Also on platforms like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, YouTube, Apple, BitChute, Rumble, and more. Tickets with you on any mobile device. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast, t-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, makes great gifts 24/7. Amazon.com. Keywords the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Great books, merchandise, and more. And support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We're here with the amazing author, entrepreneur, and we just covered bodybuilder John Brink here on the Mike Wagner Show. Before I talk about your latest book, $1 Billion Communication Skills, you didn't have that luxury in World War II, and especially one of the most significant ones was the devastating hunger winter of 1944 and 45. And what was it like around that time? Tell us about the experience and life, and what was it like growing up in World War II?
Yes, that's a very good question, Mike, especially now because we are just out of May. The liberation or the capitulation of the German army was May the 5th is being celebrated in Europe. And then obviously in April, we were in Northern Holland liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945. We saw far too much that we should not have seen. I still remember as a 5-year-old, people that was shot, or we had a neighbor that was shot that I always remembered, and other things happened. Wagons driving by with legs out of the side, that people that got caught during the war. Since we were in the northeastern part of Holland, within 10, 15 minutes of the border, the obviously the Allied forces landed in Normandy, pushed through the France. The Canadians went north through France, Belgium, and then through the west side of Holland, and then pushed towards the German border through the north. That's where we were. In 1944, I remember it was the hunger. They had cut off all the food supply to Holland. And as kids, my brother, my sister, that were 2 years older than me and 1 year older than me, and myself, every morning we would go with gunny sacks to the railroad yard, pick up anything edible and burnable. And
Oh,
then the
wow.
winter of 1944-45 was the coldest on record, and I still remember the cold and the heat from the little heater that we had, but in that little room in the house, the only one that we could heat, and I still, even now, still feel the feeling of hunger. and a lot of older people died or young kids died that did not have food. So the war years are still in my mind. PTSD is still part of me. I was got counseling for the inner child, the little boy that was had anxiety of losing his parents during the war, as happened to other ones, and that always kind of stayed with me. And I got counseling for that in my 50s here in Canada. Actually, very emotional, but very, very important. And so that war, it's not once the war is over, everything goes back to normal. It doesn't. It may take generations, in fact. And even now, still, I feel I have an obligation to speak about it on the Remembrance Day, November the 11th. During that week, I made make presentations to at least two or three different schools in British Columbia, mainly to share with them what I believe. Why the 2 minutes of silence? Why is it so important for us in together to understand the benefits of peace and the things that will happen during war and how it stays with you and all we have to do is look around the world how fortunate we are to the Ukraine, Russia, the Middle East now in particular, and all the other things that are happening. We are so fortunate in North America compared to a lot of those countries.
And also thought about when you mentioned about your being in Dutch Army and all that. Your father was in the Dutch Army as well too, but he was nobly absent as well. And that was like something. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but having that was like really difficult.
But you can well imagine, my mom and dad got married in 1938. They were in love and they had rented a little house. My dad worked at the lumber company, so they were in paradise. And then, obviously, in 1939, Hitler decided then the tyrant of running Germany decided that they should incorporate Poland into Germany. And then after they did that, then it was obvious they would try to invade and capitulate Holland and some of the other countries on in Western Europe. And then my dad was called on May the 5th. In April, actually, of 1940, he was called into the Dutch army, and the last time that they heard from him or saw him was in just before Rotterdam was bombed.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so the Germans didn't feel that they capitulated quick enough in Holland. And as an example, they bombed this huge city, Rotterdam. And the last time, as I said, that he saw my dad was during that bombing. And for 5 years, my mom would not know if he survived or lived until after the war. He did live, but came back after the liberation. But after being gone for 5 years and him having seen far too much that he should not have seen, I always remembered he had a helmet with him, and in the helmet was a bullet hole where it passed right by his head within a fraction of an inch. And so he was never the same, I believe, and he didn't talk about the war, and it always stayed with him, resulted in, I believe, substantially having drinking issues, alcohol issues, and was successful in a lot of ways, but still, alcohol was a way of shielding the memories of war, I believe. And
hmm
for them as a family, things were never quite the same again.
And I think that was part of a PTSD at his end. Of course, back in the day, it was shell shock.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so, and all of that is still part of what we remember so well. And, but I believe it is very, very important for me. I was there, even as a 5-year old and 3.5 years old. I remember what it did. I remember the army coming through. I remember seeing dead bodies, and
Oh.
and so so it always stayed with me. And I feel that I have an obligation to share that with young people in particular. That's why for the last 10, 12 years, that's what I do. At least two or three different schools. I speak to them about why the 2 minutes of silence? What does it really mean?
It sounds to me that you hear about Nazi invasions like in England, France, Poland, and everything else. Recently I talked to somebody. They experienced the invasion in Austria. It's never mentioned history, and I think in Denmark and Holland was never mentioned until now.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but very, very important to talk about it. And
Hmm.
then the other part is that if we are so lucky here in North America, Canada and the United States are so similar. But if I look at other places like Russia, China, Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, and I can go on and on and on. We are so fortunate and so lucky that we have democratic rule, and to preserve that is very, very important.
Hmm.
And I remember after the Second World War that when Western Europe and other places were in turmoil, the Marshall Plan came in was mainly driven by the Allied forces, in particular the United States, Canada, and the UK, trying to rebuild Europe. And that always stayed with us as being thankful for being liberated and how important it was to rebuild Western Europe. And subsequently, a lot of people from Western Europe and Eastern Europe emigrated to the United States, Canada, and other places. And the other part, Mike, that I believe so important about democratic rule is, and there are always challenges even in democratic societies, but I believe the foundation in the United States and the same in Canada, but in the United States in particular, because they are the example of 250 years of democratic rule, and the foundation is their constitution, which starts with three words: we
We the
the
people.
people. That's what is the foundation. And then all the politics that happens in between will all pass and make sure that in the medium long term we remain democratic rule.
And of course, you seem to have a love for people as well too, and you enjoy connecting with people and have a passion for humans and everything. And what was your beginning for like having love connecting with other humans? I mean, we need more connections than ever.
Yeah, so when I first came in Canada, obviously was I couldn't speak the language, and and started as a cleanup man, and it took time for me to learn to speak English, and and then in Holland, when I grew up there, especially during difficult times. I had challenges that and then obviously was not successful academically. The other thing you remember, you already mentioned earlier, is that it was much later that I found that my challenges in school, failing grade three and failing grade seven three times, were related, in my opinion, to ADHD, and I wrote a book about that and so I had never even heard of ADHD until I found a book much 30 years after I came in Canada. And by pure coincidence, I picked up a book in the bookstore, and the book's title was Driven to Distraction. And the more I read it and looked at it in the bookstore, I said, "Oh my God, that's me, ADHD."
So
And
this happened in '95, then pretty much
it was, so I came in 1965. 32
'65.
years later, in 1997,
Oh,
I
32
picked
years.
it.
So I said 30.
Yeah,
Okay, now I got
yeah.
within that
So,
range.
and I still have the book, and I have it on my in my studio where I do podcasting. Here I'm in the boardroom of one of my companies, but so I have the book still, Driven to the Extraction. I opened the book and I wrote inside the book in Dutch that now I finally know who I am. And it was January 1997, after I'd been here for 32 years. And so the more I found out about it, read the book, and it's written by Dr. Halliwell, and he's an amazing individual, wrote 18 books. He has dyslexia and he's ADHD.
Oh
So am I.
my gosh, what a combination.
And so am I. And
Wow.
so, and now the more I read about it and Google, I call it a superpower. And a lot of people say to me, "How do you do all these things? You have 10 companies, you're a speaker, you do podcasting, you write books. How do you do all this stuff?" I say ADHD. That's how I do it.
Or wait a minute. I think I have another one. You talk about dyslexia and ADHD. How about DADHD?
Did yeah, I don't know what that is.
DADHD, Dad HD. I think that's an appropriate one.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. And of course, you've had some success. You also wrote a book about $1 billion communication skills. You make $1 billion. I guess we'll find out with author John Brink. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson Missing, the Sweet Psalms by Serena Wagner, based on the life of King David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David Psalms, Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. We'll be back with you, multi-talent author John Brink of $1 billion communication skills after this time out. We're back with author John Brink of $1 billion communication skills here on the Mike Wagner Show, and he's got the book out right now. Before that, you talked about living young, dying old. You showed ADHD unlocked, and how about maybe a couple others like finding your passion, living the dream? Tell us more about that.
Yes. Now, that was another one, and here's the book that I wrote about that, is that I watched something. I talk to a lot of younger people in universities and make presentations, and then a lot of times I ask some of them, "What do you plan to do after university?" And a lot of them say, "I don't know." I
Just
said,
like
"It's
most people
important that
after 100,000 student loans. Yeah.
it's important that you kind of know." And so then I watched another TV ish. I don't know about CNN or ABC, but we watch a lot of U.S. television. Anyway, they said that in the United States, 75% of the people that work don't like their jobs, and 70% of the 75% are looking for another job. I believe it's the same in Canada as the United States. And
So
so,
they're pretty much parallel, right? 70, 75%. They hate their jobs. They wish I had another job. So they're kind of parallel.
correct.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So what I'm suggesting to the people and the young people in particular I talk to, so it is important to kind of explore what do you really like to do? And it's about finding your passion as to what do you like to do? Because if you spend most of your life, for all of us, 20, 30, 40 years in a job that we don't like, that's not very good. And you take it home with you. It affects you and your personality and
And the family and the kids. Been there, done
everything,
that. Yep.
everything. So I say, if you want to be a truck driver, talk to a truck driver. Should you haul short haul, long haul? Should you own a truck, not own a truck? Blah, 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 on and on. Or you want to be a contractor, you want to build houses, talk to a contractor. They all love to talk to people that are exploring what you do. Or you want to be a lawyer, or you want to be a doc, or you want to be a consultant of some description or another. All of that is available, but you explore it. Or for that matter, you want to be an entrepreneur. I always say, if somebody comes to me and say, John, would you have, can I have a coffee with you to explore some of the things that I'm thinking about doing? And I would say, sure, and I always encourage that. And I believe that's very, very important because the statistics of having 75 percent of the people not liking their job and having to look for another job is not a good one.
And also not liking their boss, not liking their coworkers, not liking the environment, especially you got toxic environments, which have been on the rise as of late.
Exactly.
Right. And of course, you've been through everything like that. And before we talk about Against All Odds, I forgot to ask you this question. Was it one precise moment that got you starting to writing books? And how'd you first get started in books? I forgot to ask you that earlier. My bad.
Yeah, no worries about that. A lot of times already, people said to me, "Hey, John, you had such an interesting life. You should write a book about it." So for about 20 years, writing books is not easy. And I started writing and I stopped, started again, stopped, and so on and so forth. And then when I was in my mid 70s, I knew if I didn't do it now, it would never happen. So I started against all odds is this one. It's not about how successful John is. In fact, to the contrary, it's about all the ups and downs. So this book took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. And then from there on in, once I did that, I added to that ADHD, and then the next one, living young, dying old, and finding your passion. And now, obviously, billion-dollar communication skills. And the reason that I do the billion-dollar communication skills, all the books are connected in a way. And there is nothing more important, and there is nothing more or least taught in a structural setting about becoming an effective communicator.
Good
And
point.
so, and the reason that I wrote this, because not about how to become a billionaire, you could maybe accomplish that in the meantime, but that's not what the book is about. It's about communication skills. And all those billionaires became, through circumstances, very effective communicators. And that's the point. And for me, that was important, especially growing up in northeastern Holland, where we started with speaking dialect. If I speak dialect, nobody in the rest of Holland can understand me. And it was not until I went into the Air Force that I had learned to speak High Dutch. And so, and I was there till in my early 20s, 21, about. And then the next thing, 2 years later, after I got that under control, I go to Canada and couldn't speak the language. I had to get that part under control. And then I wanted to go further than that, and it took time. And now I believe I'm a fairly good communicator.
I was going to ask you something too. Talk about dialect when you learned. They went up to the Air Force. You learned High Dutch. What's the difference between dialect and High Dutch?
Dialect is more regional, and all the words are not the same. The tone is not the same. And because it's in the northeastern part of Holland, there is a tendency in that region that there are farmers. And a lot of people in the rest of Holland, if you speak High Dutch and you have dialect or have an accent that is dialect, you say, "Oh, it's a farmer." So that is the difference. So if you want to become successful in business in Holland, outside of the region, or even in the region, you must be able to articulate your thoughts into High Dutch.
So that's the only two that you have, right? Or is there another one?
Well, I speak Dutch dialect. I can speak some German and then English, obviously.
Okay, I was just going to get to that because here in the United States, you have other accents. You got your Midwest accent, you got your New York and Boston accent, you got your Southern accent, and you got your Texas, West Coast accent, and I think you got your the Northern Plains as well too. And yeah, you got some various dialects. So, and I think you also had German, English, and what other languages do you speak, or what other language would you like to learn?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. I always wanted to learn to speak Spanish,
Nice.
and I like Spanish. That the structure of Spanish is very interesting, and obviously it's a good one to learn because Spanish is spoken in numerous areas, obviously around the world, and at some point I may do that. So.
And I think that's really great. And getting back to $1 billion communication skills with John Brink and the Mike Wagner Show, and you talked about the excellent, effective communication skills most billionaires have, most successful people. What are some more common traits that these effective communicators have, especially billionaires?
Are you asking me?
Yes. What are some more effective ones? What they have in common? I was just asking. Common traits.
That's a very good question. So for me, I was didn't used to be a good communicator for all the reasons that I gave you, and it affected my business in a way, even when I started and already was successful in business. I was not very good to do interaction with a number of people. I could do with two or three in part of my company until an ex-sister-in-law said to me, in probably mid 80s, 1980, 1985, 87, 89. At 1990, she took me to an organization called Toastmasters.
That's an excellent organization. Highly recommend everybody. That's very highly recommended.
So I went there and I said, "What do they do?" He said, "Well, they develop communication skills." And I said, "Oh, are you going to ask me any questions?" He said, "No, you just sit there and watch." I said, "Okay." So I sat down and watched. And then in the middle of the meeting, somebody said, "Hey, John, tell us all about yourself." And I said, "Oh my God, I'll never go back here." But I did. I stayed there for 10 years. So I became a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level. Less than 1% worldwide of Toastmasters are DTMs, or distinguished
Wow.
Toastmasters. Uh, and and that does not mean a lot of other people they stay in Toastmasters until they acquire whatever skills they are looking for, they acquire, but usually don't stay to get all the way to DTM. That changed my ability to clearly thinking, to become a very good listener first and foremost, and then to be able to articulate my thoughts. And part of that is the training in Toastmasters. And I speak about that as well in this book, is that, so the most important skills that I learned at Toastmasters is to become a good listener. The other one is thinking on your feet.
That's important.
And that's important. And then develop presentations. And then for me, develop self-confidence. And so public speaking is, and a lot of people say, a lot of people would sooner die than have to become a speaker in front of a group of people. I know the feeling, and I become a very, very good presenter. And then natural from nature, and obviously I'm doing well in podcasting, is that I'm a storyteller. And that's what I do in my books. I'm a storyteller. And then obviously I'm a good listener. And if we look at this book from the billionaires that became successful and others, is what made them successful? Communication skills. Where they acquired it in different ways. And that's why I wrote the book, as to find what made them successful, because without that, it is highly unlikely that they have become billionaires.
I think that's really important out there, and I think that's really great. And plus, you talked about podcasting. You got your show called On the Brink. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Probably 5, 6 years ago, Mike, I already liked the idea of blogging, and 6, 7 years ago, probably, and so I did part of that on a local level. And then the next thing is that I started to interact with the local television station, bring in people from the region uh, that were interesting, and then kind of looked at. We did so many of it, and I liked it, and it was successful regionally in local television. I thought maybe what I have to do is set up another television or podcasting station in Vancouver. I had an apartment there. And then the more we thought about it, then the next thing, COVID happened. And all of a sudden, we couldn't do that anymore in the television station. And then I had a studio in an apartment. So let's turn it into a studio. And we did that. And then the next thing is let's join Pot Match. And Pot Match is very well known. Check it out on Google. Is where they're matching individuals from around the world that have similarities, and then it gave us a whole new world to interact with. And so, as I said, for illustration only, not to sit here and brag about it, but I've done probably approaching 450 podcasts where I am the host, and probably another 200 or 250 where I'm a guest. And then obviously on YouTube, be approaching 1 million subscribers
Nice.
on the podcast. So immensely powerful. It's only on its infancy, Mike, in my opinion, and it's going to go much, much further.
And you continue to you're being a passionate advocate for raising awareness of ADHD. So once
Correct.
again, talk about that and just keep the fire burning for that for those ADHD.
Correct. And so what I do is that my podcasting may not include from time to time issues around ADHD. The other thing that is so amazing about it, Mike, is I believe I did podcast last week where I did 3 podcasts of ladies in particular. In that case, by coincidence, is that were either doctors or PhD or whatever they were on different topics. All 3 of them never really told anybody ADHD.
Wow. Okay.
Can you believe it? And then Dr. Halliwell that wrote the book, uh, so, and my podcast on the brink, for those that want to see him, uh, driven to distraction, is I did a podcast with him on my On the Brink podcast 203. And I think I'm now at 427, 28, or whatever we are. But 203 is a podcast with Dr. Halliwell that he wrote the book that I picked up in 1993. I picked up the book in the store here in January of 1997, and I podcasted him in 2024, I believe. My podcast is 203. And when I picked up his book, I read about it. It changed my life. No question
Okay.
about
That is certainly amazing as well, too. And of course, if you find out more, where can we check your podcast and how do we get a hold of your books and what's your website, John?
The best way to get a hold of my books and all of the other things, they are available on all the platforms that you mentioned earlier. And the best way to find out what we're doing is John, John, A as in Adam or Aaron's, Brink, BRINK.com.
That's johnabrink.com.
Correct.
All right. Well, certainly check that out. Have everybody go to that. We're here, amazing author of $1 billion communication skills and more. John Brink here on the Mike Wagner Show. John, just a few more things. What else can we expect from you 2025 and beyond?
All my silos, I'm still intending to grow my companies. And, so on all the platforms, A rang. So sorry about it. I just meant I
Oh,
heard
that's
my
okay. I thought there was a kitty over there, or a squirrel or something. So it's like I've had that happen too. It's like, is it rain or rain? Oh, okay.
So the funny part here is that I have an earpiece, I in here, and so when the phone rings, Scott is sitting here. He didn't hear the phone ring, but I hear it in my ear.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, so what am I going to do is all the silos, the lumber, the warehousing, the real estate, and the media. I want to start a platform, and so in the next 2 to 3 months, I'm going to write another. I'm working on two other books. And then in the meantime, I want to stay fit. I want to get ready. I go train, stay physically fit, stay enjoying my diet. The amazing thing, Mike, is that I love going to the gym. And,
Nice.
and and so for some people it's difficult. I say stay the course. And then if you do, then after a while, but will happen, and you don't have to all become Olympians or bodybuilders, but stay fit. And the amazing things that will happen, somebody will say, "Hey, Mike," or "Hey, John, you look good. What do you do?" Blah, blah, blah. And you start feeling better. The same as diet. Drink a glass of water, 10-ounce water in the mornings, get 7 to 9 hours sleep, use vitamin D, sunshine, and then, go to the gym, get exercise, both heavy weights and cardio, and then diet is extremely important.
And that's so important as well, too. And I gotta say that's you being 85, mean 61, you'd be a pretty cool dad. I gotta say that. So oh, certainly amazing. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
In my career, probably my dad was as an example for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, us being very, very hardworking and considering the challenges that he had along the way has been an inspiration to me.
Okay. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Say again.
What's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Attitude, passion, work ethic, but will follow is success.
That is certainly paramount as well, too. Here, the amazing author John Brink, an entrepreneur of billion-dollar communication skills here on the Mike Wagner Show. John, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Laugh at be back. We wish all best. And before we go, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your books? Sean?
JohnABrink.com.
JohnABrink.com. We will certainly check that out. Once again, John, a very big thank you for your time. You've been totally amazing. Looking forward to him soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. We wish all best. And John, you definitely have a great future ahead.
It was a pleasure, Mike. Take care.